Hi everyone, Timothy Dunn here. Just wanted to dive right into law number 9. And again, we're going through the 48 laws of power that are written by Mr. Robert Greene. Now this is an interesting one. Law number 9 states, win through your actions, never through argument. Now listen to the subtext here. Any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a fleeting victory. The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than the momentary change of opinion. It's much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. That's cool. Demonstrate, do not explicate. Now, the principles in this law are pretty interesting because it talks about how if you are trying to get your point across to someone that does not believe the same things you do, arguing is the last thing that you want to do. The arguer does not understand that the words are never neutral, and that by arguing with a superior, he impugns the intelligence of one more powerful than he. So in other words, even if you think your boss is totally wrong, going head-to-head and arguing probably isn't the best medicine to get your point across. And it talked about, there's a very good story in here, in the 1500s, where in Florence, Italy, there was this master carpenter that made masts, those big things where the sails were put onto ships, okay? And this general wanted a bunch of these things built, and he wanted really tall masts, and he wanted a certain specification, and so he sent his people to this carpenter, and the carpenter said, wait a minute, based on the laws of physics and where I know you're going to fight and the size of the ship, I think that you would be able to do more damage, go faster, detach these things and use them as ramrods and do all this stuff if we built something that was a little smaller. Now, these people that went in to place the order, they said, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, you don't know our boss, you don't want to argue with him. And so the carpenter, who was also an engineer, pretended like he knew a lot about military theory, and he went on and on and on and argued and all this stuff, and finally he said, okay, forget it, I'll build the big ones. Now, the people that were there to, get the order for the general, they went back, and so the carpenter went to work, and basically he built the small ones that he intended to do all the time. So when the order came in, the general was livid. And the people that he had sent out to get the order, they said, hey, I don't know, we tried to argue with this guy, and he gave us a hard time, but he said that he was going to do what you had asked. So this general, and all the time he has his army along the shore, he's ready to attack this city. He says, go get me this guy, I want to talk to him. How dare he do something that's directly opposed to what I told him to do? So they went and found this carpenter who's an engineer, and he came in, and he brought all kinds of charts and graphs and all kinds of stuff. And the general sat there and he said, what are you thinking? I told you to give me what I wanted. And instead of just saying, I screwed up, or I don't agree, but I'll go back and redo it, he went into a long dissertation with pie charts and graphs and all this stuff. And at the end, the general was just sitting there, and he goes, okay, that's all fine and good. Then he had his other army just beat the crap out of this guy and kill him. So it really didn't do this guy any good at all to argue with the general and really make his point and go through all the dissertation, because he had offended him. And that's really the point of the law. Even if you have a substantial amount of facts behind you and your idea is better, or you can prove that your boss's idea is not going to fly, arguing is really not the best way around it, because even if you're correct, what you've done is you've done damage to that relationship that can never be recovered. I don't care how gently it says here that you could have Shakespeare or Socrates try to write your speech, but it's never going to be recovered, because inevitably you're going to offend someone and it's going to damage that relationship, which again is going to cause you to voluntarily lose some of your power. And that's what we're trying not to have happen. So the law is trying to teach us that in a situation where we feel that we have documented proof that the existing project or the plan or whatever corporate environment we're in is going down the wrong path, you can affect change, but you definitely don't want to set up an argument around it, because even if you win, that argument is going to instill some animosity within the group itself. And I know I've been guilty of that many times in the past. It's very difficult to hold your tongue, especially when you know you're right. Now, it says something very interesting here. Let me read this so I get it correct. The power of demonstrating your idea is that your opponents do not get defensive and are therefore more open to persuasion, making them literally and physically feel your meaning is infinitely more powerful than an argument that's put forward. So that's very, very interesting. If you can demonstrate, and what it says here is that the most powerful persuasion goes beyond action into symbol. So in this, if you're going to make a subtle argument, then the best thing to do is do your research and maybe give some empirical data which countermands some of the project and what's actually going forward. If you can prove that this has not worked in the past and you point to that circumstance, then it's those facts that they're fighting against and it's not you. And again, be very careful that you don't stand on it, even though you know that it's correct. You just kind of want to float it out there and let that individual or let that project manager fight against those facts and not against you. One of the things that I love about this book is that it gives you the reversal. In other words, when should you do the opposite of what it's recommending? And really, this is something that I'm almost afraid to share because I don't want this to be a practice, and you and I both know it's probably not a good thing. But it's saying the only time to really get angry and to argue is if you've been caught dead to rights in an act of deception, or if you've been caught in a lie or in a position of deficiency. You can get all angry, and it does tend to be effective when someone is trying to point blame at you. And again, you can't use this all the time because then people start to recognize that characteristic, but it is pointed out in the chapter, so I did want to make sure that I pointed that out to you as well. Just be very careful if you're using the argument to cover up your own deficiency. And you see this a lot in con men, sometimes in children that are very good at deception. If they can get angry, and they say, "How dare you?" Basically, the integrity of the whole situation takes away from what everyone knows to be the fact. So just be very careful. But I think this is very interesting in that when we choose to go ahead and contest someone that's above us, when we choose to argue with someone above us, even if we're right, the law says that it's causing a lot of damage, and therefore we are diminishing our power. It's better to go ahead and let an example, or better to go ahead and give in than to diminish your power in the long run. Well, I hope this has been effective and wonderful. I know I'm learning a lot. I am on my way to law number 10, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you again for going through this journey with me, and we'll talk to you soon.